what would be your advice to businesses that are bootstrapping right now? I've got a really simple one. Don't make a mistake.
To it though, wasn't it? Through network marketing and isogenics. And how did we first meet? You stalking me online and things like that. So, but London was the first time we met.
Correct. Excel Centre in London.
Yeah. And I got roped into this shake scheme and got wind that it was launched in the UK and that this superstar network marketer named Joshua Carter would be in attendance. So did I reach out to you before the event?
Yeah.
Or was it at the event?
It might have been at the event.
Yeah, right. Okay. So yeah, down to London, which was about 9-hour drive for me in Manchester. And Excel Arena, event centre, whatever you want to call it. 10,000 people, something like that. It's a pretty big launch. Massive launch. And we all sit down, we're all chanting, doing all the ritualistic things that you do at these fantastic meetups. Over the top enthusiasm. And the last 2 seats to my left in this whole arena, in trundles, Mr. Joshua Carter.
That is true. Actually, there's a bit more of the story. So I got a message from Warren Lance, and he said, I've got this absolute gun that's going to be killing it in network marketing. Can you meet up with him? So I was like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I can meet up with you. So anyway, I was late to the event. My partner at the time was doing her thing, and we were late, and a massive centre, and we walk in and we're like, where the heck are we going to find 2 seats together? And sure enough, sitting right next to Alec was 2 free seats, and Yasmin.
Yeah, I remember chasing you out the Excel Centre to go meet you. Stand with your team in an Irish pub, I think it was.
That's right.
And it was pissing it down with rain. And Yasmin was like, well, what are we doing? Where are we going? Who are these people? And I said, I don't know, but he looks like Josh Carter. So we'll just follow him. So we followed you across London. And then I guess staying in touch as you do. If you're ever in New Zealand, likelihood of that, when I've just, mid-grad scheme, I was going really well. No intentions of traveling anywhere ever. Just wasn't in my peripheral. Christmas Day, we flew out of the UK to be picked up by you in the middle of Taupo. And that was almost 7 years ago.
When I first met Alex, I knew he was keen into business because I had a message from a mentor of mine saying that he had met Alex and some of the people that he was getting involved with, and that I should meet up with him because he was young, interested in business, hungry to do something. And at the time it was, network marketing was the vehicle that we were both really interested in. It was a nutritional company. I had done maybe 4 years with them. When I first met Alex, we were, doing really well for ourselves. I was only 21. Oh, not even that. Yeah, I was about 21 at the time, just launching the UK and traveling around doing that tour. So it was good fun. But I think when you meet people, you definitely know, like when you meet them and you figure out, if you're interested in business or not interested in business, and you find those aligned points. Alex was definitely someone who I was like, yeah, this is a good vibe. And that's why I said, if you're ever over in New Zealand, come and spend some time with my partner and myself, because it's just important. I've always found it important in my business journey to be around people who are excited about business. It just creates an awesome environment, your own personal economy. And so when Alex did finally come over, literally flew out Christmas Day, landed Boxing Day. We'd only met 6 months previously. I think, Alex, the only reason you flew out, I remember getting the call. You said, Josh, I've been made redundant, which was actually half the story. That was only half the story. It was like you'd been made redundant because you weren't performing. Come on, fill us in on that. Fill us in on the actual story, Alex. How did you end up in New Zealand?
That's a half-truth, Joshua.
You gave me a half-truth as to why you were coming over.
Yeah. No, I think to kind of fill the picture, and I'd always been quite entrepreneurial, like businesses in the back end of school, left school, went to work with my dad in his own business, set up a recruitment business just whilst I was going through university. Always had this innate, I want to work for myself, want to control my time, want to be in control of my income, belief system. And to reinforce that, I thought I had to understand numbers and finance. And that's kind of why I went down the accounting route, the finance grad scheme I was encouraged to leave. That's kind of that way.
Encouraged to leave. That is a nice way of putting it.
Yeah. No, but long story short, with the grad scheme, like I got in there, they obviously sponsored my exams and things like that, which the way that I work, like I flew through the exams. Then I got introduced to network marketing on the side, and I could see the power of the business model. I could see the opportunity that lay within it. So my focus then really came on two things: flying through my exams as quick as I could, and then building my network marketing business on the side and like immersing myself within that world. And I think as a result, like the day-to-day finance stuff, you know, the assistant accountant role that I was in took a bit of a knock. It kind of got to the point where, you know, my FD at the time, shout out to Andy, took me into a room and said, you know, I think you should probably find something a bit more challenging because, like, you know, you're in year 4 of your exams, but you're still in year 1 of your work experience, and it just doesn't quite align. And so, yeah, I left that business, and that was the motivation then to kind of step back and be like, yeah, I like this network marketing stuff. Why don't we pursue this a bit more in depth and like commit more time and energy to it? And that's pretty much the reason that we came to New Zealand. Yeah, framed as travel, but it was more, you know, we knew you were here. We knew that some of your upline was here. Everybody was available if we made the effort. And that's what really got me on the plane. And yeah, flew out Christmas Day thinking it was going to be quiet, and got to Dubai and realized that Christmas isn't a thing there. So
the question being, like, how did we decide we're going to do business together? The truth of the story was probably a year or two after you turning up in New Zealand, our network marketing business took a massive hit. Like, there were some external factors, there were some internal factors, there were some team factors, there were a lot of things going on that had me very much disengaged from the joy of the industry, I suppose, and what we had built. There was a lot of stuff going on there. So I was always looking for something new, something that I could sink my teeth into. Numbers had always been a big thing. And I actually got an opportunity to do some bookkeeping / accounting / systems work for someone who turned out to be our first client, or one of our first clients. And you at the same time, from memory, were looking, because of the same situation going on in your network marketing business, we're looking at starting up like an accounting firm, CPA with a tie, nice photo of James CPA or something like that. From memory, that's what happened. And I think it was just coincidental that we're both kind of looking to do something at the same time, having the same thoughts, the same feelings, and deciding to join forces. And it kind of ties to how we ended up in outsourcing, but it just felt easy. Like we hung out. I think something we've done really well is being able to separate business from friendship. You know, we play a lot of golf, we travel a lot together. It is sometimes like having two families being married together. And sometimes, what did Yasmin say the other day? What did she say?
Oh, it's something along the lines of, can you not breathe without this guy, or something like that?
Yeah,
can you not go a day without speaking to him? I'm like,
If it's not golf, it's business. If it's not business, it's friendship. If it's kids, if it's not kids, it's something else. So
definitely TikTok memes at one stage. So.
TikTok memes are a good one. That's a good one. But yeah,
no, I think you're right. Like, kind of where, obviously for me to stay in New Zealand, I had to go back into corporate.
True.
I had to get a talent visa, so I had to jump back into the world of accounting, and thankfully, so I still had my qualification to kind of fall back on and get residency through that route. I think it was about 12, 18 months into that journey that you'd obviously been working with the Amazon business, doing all the finances, systems, a bit of strategic stuff with them. And that's where you approached me, I think at the time, around how all of these business owners that we kind of working with need more insight within the business from a numbers perspective, but then can't necessarily afford to stick it on the payroll. So what could we come up with, knowing that we're quite tech focused, knowing that we can read financial statements and those management accounting kind of interactions with analysis and that kind of piece that sits behind it. So yeah, I remember you saying, like, why don't we look at setting something up? And that's where, like, the next powered by tech accounting firm idea came from, and which predominantly was just done for you bookkeeping, really, with a bit of a tech stack behind it and then some strategic kind of insights, which we laugh at, but there are a lot of businesses that are still stuck needing that today.
So true.
And then, yeah, obviously, as we kind of built our service offering and stepped away from full-time day job, so to speak, to build that client base out, that's when the transition into more of the outsourcing and staffing kind of came in afterwards. But yeah, I think that's how it happened. And then for me, how did I choose to be in business with Josh? Well, I think we're very similar by way of temperament, by way of, how we see the world. Josh is very much more of like a galvanizer of people than I am, whereas I'm very much more of like the observer and kind of see, what's actually happening. So I think that works really well. And then I also think the fact that we've both done the Landmark Forum and how we perceive reality, so to speak, and the way that we get to choose meaning around things in a very similar fashion definitely helps in the communication piece, which then kind of cascades into everything else that we do in business. So it wasn't a tough choice. For me, there haven't been any moments like, oh, fuck, was this the right choice? Like, it's just been this evolution of growth. And then like, yeah, what's the next cool thing that we're going to build and prove and start to sell? And then...
And that doesn't mean to say that we haven't had conflict or we haven't, had very varying opinions on certain topics. But I think it is that yin and yang in some senses. Like, if you don't have those conflicts, then what do you really need your co-founder for? Or like, it is important to kind of have them. But it's the ability to work through them, I suppose, and come up with an aligned action on the other side of it. Every 18-year-old should join a network marketing company. And it's not necessarily to make the money. Although that is a massive benefit if you join the right company with the right product and the right compensation plan, but it builds your network and it builds your ability to lead. And I think, those people or 18-year-olds who do join should just treat it as a business, and it'll pay you like a business if you put in the work and you learn the skills. So, when I first started, it was excitement. I did ride a wave. There was hype. There was excitement. It was new products to the market. The message market fit for the product at the time hadn't expired in some way. Like, we were selling weight loss and performance products. So the market was at a stage where they were ready to receive it. However, what happens in network marketing is overinflation of the truth. It's very easy the truth to get overinflated, and what that does is it actually diminishes the message and the power of the products that we were actually selling. So my partner and I, Sarah, were moving some serious volumes of product through New Zealand. I think, at some stage there was nearly a third of the entire product allocation for New Zealand was going through our business centre. So we were proper moving some product through our business. With any business, as it grows, you add more people. With more people comes different lives, different experiences, and a lot of drama started occurring. I hadn't ever been in that situation before where I could, had the skills to kind of disengage from that in some ways. And so by just natural attrition, I started looking in other places, looking for other things to do to earn money. It wasn't a sharp decline in some ways. It was gradual. Definitely was a reflection of the effort we were putting in. There were a lot of factors at play. And I love the industry. Like, I do love the industry. I think there's definitely some incredible leaders there. I think there's some incredible leaders have come from network marketing. I know there were some incredible leaders that have come from network marketing, and they do it right. But there's also some bad actors. And so that's why I started disengaging.
So coming from Manchester to New Zealand via London, so I'll give you that credit.
You don't sound like no Londoner.
I don't sound like Neil, do I?
He's French.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, so coming to New Zealand, obviously it's a rather large kind of land. Geographically, it's quite a large space, but there's nobody that lives here. And obviously, I think the economy kind of shows that. And yeah, back in the UK, I worked in accounting and it was actually cash management. So the business to then come into New Zealand and Taupo specifically and joining a geothermal drilling business that had paper archives stemming back to possibly 1634. It was so old school to the point where you wouldn't even go into the the room where they kept all the files for like historical financials, because half the roof was missing and there's just bird shit everywhere. So yeah, it was a massive change, but also a reflection of like, for me, New Zealand, it's definitely a lot more of like a slower pace. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going to go with this question, to be honest. Because talking about the finance specifically, like, no matter what kind of business you're in, finance is still finance. It's still the same process, procedures. It's still the same kind of governance. It's still the same, you know, we got the month-end close. Like, process-wise, a lot of it is very similar. The tech that you use can be quite different. I guess culturally, when you are with a bigger organization or like a long-established organization, I think the culture is a little bit more old school. Staff are typically a bit older. You know, change isn't as welcome. So there are all these things that I guess you got to adapt to and deal with. But I'm also of a personality where, like, if something needs to be done, then everything kind of just gets out of the way to achieve that. And for me, that was getting a residency visa. So it didn't really matter where I had to show up every single day. The bigger goal was getting residency, giving myself some freedom. Then I can choose, like, I'm not tied to this specific place of work, that sort of stuff. So yeah, there was quite a bit of change, but then also a lot of similarities too with the line of work that I was in.
What inspired us to start the outsourcing business was we had decided to go into business. We were at the time servicing some like done-for-you bookkeeping, finance function kind of work. We were looking to really provide SME owners with some more insights into what these numbers actually mean. And so Alex was a management accountant, trained, qualified, all that kind of stuff. I understood numbers. I had really good systems background, kind of learned the bookkeeping piece quite quickly. It's just numbers are just my jam. And we saw the need for small businesses to get access to numbers quicker. So that's where we started, like more a done-for-you finance function kind of business. How we transitioned is that, number one, and we were definitely at a premium price level, and we saw a need for some of these businesses who already had good finance resource there, like financial directors or, you know, finance managers or CFOs, were really kind of struggling with the weight of the increase in compliance, the increase in just transactional workload, and they were actually diving in and getting that stuff done, which, you know, you need to do in those functions. The work's got to be done. But we saw a need and we saw an ability for us to actually help staff those functions with amazing staff in the Philippines. Now, for us, we understood the quality of the staff in the Philippines because we were using them to help support these businesses that we were running these finance functions for. So we understood it. Now, for whatever reason, the Philippines CPA accounting programs are just second to none. Like, their technical understanding of accounting globally is off the charts. Like, there are very few accounting firms in Australia. New Zealand's a little bit slower to catch up, but there are very few accounting firms in Australia who do not or have not ever outsourced in some way, you know, or hired offshore talent, and specifically from the Philippines. India's okay, but we found the Philippines to be kind of 10 times better. And so we were like, well, is this a better leverage point for us to actually just staff it, you know, help staff these functions? And because we'd been in network marketing for a while, we actually had a warm network to kind of test this message market or this product market fit against. And we really targeted that kind of small business owner / medium-sized enterprise to start with. And we tested it and it worked. Picked up some big brands very quickly. The message just kind of got out there. COVID hit, which was a huge upside to us because the idea of a work from home work environment just had to be accepted. So that also played into our favor. And we were just ruthless in believing that it could be done. So we just keep going and we keep going. And 5 years later, we've hired over, our numbers are we've hired over 150 staff for different businesses. We've hired them for New Zealand, Australia, Singapore, America, UK, like you name it. And I think it's just becoming a wider accepted tool in a company's arsenal in order to manage cost, especially for the lower level jobs. The big boys, you know, the Fortune 500s, the guys that, you know, have got resources for Africa have already had teams offshore for years, but it's now that we have cloud infrastructure and we don't need to set up servers, and we, have really good internet in certain locations. It's now a tool for the small to medium-sized enterprise, which is where we're kind of focusing our efforts. So yeah, it's been a journey, but it's working, and it's providing a lot of help to a lot of companies who are severely understaffed for a very cost-efficient.
I guess just attacking that whole what inspired us to set up an outsourcing business. So as Josh shared with everyone, like we were doing done for you bookkeeping, done for you finance function stuff, quite a bit of fractional FD, CFO kind of work. And I think the biggest thing to come out of that was a realization that we could only sell so many hours in a week.
So true. So true.
We only had, let's say best case 30 hours. If you're running the business and you're also doing one-to-one client stuff, you've only got 30, 40 hours a week that you can actually sell and deliver on. If you value family and time with your spouse and playing golf, it doesn't just all want to be work. So yeah, through having experience of actually having remote staff help us deliver these finance functions, it was just a bit of a trigger realization that was like, we could kind of transition into, helping other SMEs find shit hot talent, and we can actually scale that infinitely versus stretching my 40-hour week to a 50-hour week. It caps your income, it caps productivity, it caps brain space, it caps happiness to a degree. So I clearly remember that being a discussion point, which then led us into more outsource remote staffing as a service. So that's quite a clear memory for me.
I think another one for me in this whole journey is we started getting interest from companies that we couldn't run functions for because the function was just too large and too complex for us to be able to manage it meaningfully. So I vividly remember us having a conversation on Christmas Day after walking off the golf course, because you play golf on Christmas Day, obviously. And to our partner's absolute dismay, that's another story. But I vividly having a chat. It was one of those chats where we had different opinions, but we came to the conclusion that because we were getting this interest from these companies that were so large that had needed a full head to toe infrastructure, the best way to serve them was to actually find them incredible talent that had done the work for other companies, so that they just didn't add a whole bunch of OPEX onshore when they didn't need to. If they, we had those companies that were doing, 1,000 transactions a day that all need to be reconciled. It's just unmanageable for us to kind of do. So it was an evolution of the actual clientele we were serving as well. And the level of clientele moving into that medium to large enterprise space was a very interesting transition point, I suppose. The biggest struggle to start with was the fact that we'd committed to bootstrapping it. Maybe by default because none of us had any cash, but but it was a indirect decision to bootstrap the business. I think there's probably $300 worth of investment on the balance sheet, and that was probably for things like company incorporation, a website that never worked, the first domain that isn't even our domain now, and something else. But
yeah, I remember the first, it was like $260 or so was for incorporation, the domain name, and then the takeaway pizza that we got to celebrate starting our business.
That's right. Yeah, totally. So I think that was probably, for me, the biggest struggle was and every business owner goes through it, is when's the next paycheck coming in, right?
Yeah.
And I was lucky that I had the network marketing income to support me. You were in a little bit of a different position, but I don't think we ever looked at it like anyone's doing any more work than the other person, because while you were at work, I was absolutely nailing websites out, which were awful. And then when you came home, we were all kind of collaborating. So it kind of ebbed and flowed and evened itself out. But I think that was the most difficult piece. And it taught me that lesson of businesses eat two things, time or money. And at the start, you have no money, so you have to invest all your time. And then, as we've progressed on, we've obviously been able to buy other businesses, which has been more a money piece, which has saved us a whole bunch of time. So that's been a big learning for sure. And I think it was only through that struggle of bootstrapping that we learned half these lessons, And for me, every decision in that early stage was pivotal, even though it was an issue that it would just kind of go over our shoulders 5 years now, because we've been 5 years on, it was a $300 decision was like, this could make or break us, or like, yeah, or like, do we actually do this, or like, how much do we price this contract at, or, it was like critical to the survival or to getting paid next week to make the bills or whatever, So that was a struggle for the first 2 years. I remember somehow getting to like, I think we had like a bank balance of like 80 grand, and I was like, oh, like that finally relieved some pressure off us, and we had a bit of a celebration. Mind you, we were supposed to celebrate when we got to 10 clients, and we still haven't drunk out of those whiskey glasses. So we kind of need to do that. But those initial like decisions, because we'd never made them, we'd never been in like proper business, but we'd never been in like a traditional business before, were kind of stressful.
Yeah, you'd never had the responsibility on your shoulders, had you? And therefore you didn't have the experience that you can lean on to then make a powerful decision. It was more, fuck it, let's run with this and make the most of it. Because when this kind of topic of what would you do differently if you started again, like just reflecting on our whole hiring process to begin with, the process doesn't even come into it. It was like, what's your favorite food? Or like, does pineapple belong on pizza was such a running joke for 12 or maybe 2 years. 2 years. End up asking it in interviews as a little like personality or cultural thing, or to create some humor, but that's because we didn't have any frameworks, and granted we made some hires that didn't last. And, now sitting and looking back, you're like, well, of course, like it was never a good fit, but in the moment you're just making the best of what you know. So yeah, it's quite an interesting question. And, like, what would you do differently? Obviously now there's the more experienced way that we'd operate and execute on and do things differently. But then I also wouldn't change what we did do.
100%.
Because here we are now.
You got to be so grateful for the journey. Otherwise you look back and go, I could have done it faster, but really you couldn't have done it faster because you wouldn't have learned the lessons that we had learned. And power to us, because I think the book of hard knocks has definitely been filled up along the way, right? Like we have made some absolute blunders, which I'm sure we will get through some of these podcasts, like absolute horrific blunders, but we've come out the other side.
Yeah, still breathing. The world's still spinning. Let's not reveal all of our cards just yet.
Yeah, true.
Because we got some good ones to throw down. Has there ever been a time during the journey that you felt like quitting or like wanting to give it all in? And Josh's comment was more around like, well, quit and take on cash, or like quit Amped altogether. And I'll just speak from my personal experience over the last 5 years. In that, yeah, there's been a few times where I've contemplated whether or not setting up Amped and kind of really leaning into it was the right choice for me personally. But I think that's been influenced by a couple things. The biggest one being that although we've been building a staffing business, I have been delivering still some done-for-you finance stuff. And over the last 5 years, like we've took very moderate salaries by way of business owners, like very moderate salaries. If you got rid of us today, and you brought somebody in to run this business, then they're probably maybe 2 or 3x kind of what we take home. And that was obviously a conscious business decision to keep money in the business to ensure that there is kind of runway and there's cash there for emergencies. But yeah, I guess throughout the journey over the last few years, we've had these moments where business has been hard, feel like momentum's kind of fallen away, then it comes back, then it falls away again. And whilst delivering finance, like done for you finance stuff, and being able to compare what people of similar role experience get paid in industry versus what I take home from my business, losing the vision that actually we're building this asset in the background. Yeah, I've had a few instances where I've been like, it'd be way easier just getting a salary and a bit of equity and on the side and, sitting on that for 10 years and playing it safe. So that's definitely popped up for me over the last 5 years or so. And then all of a sudden, we get realigned again. We have a conversation about it. We get the spark of, the impact that we're actually having through the world of remote staffing. And that kind of pitters away and we're all guns blazing again with Amped. However, there's never been a moment where I've been like, this wasn't the thing to commit to. Like, Josh is a dick and I don't want to work with this guy anymore. And, that element of like giving up on it has never been present for me.
You have offered me your shares for $1 a couple of times though.
Yeah, but I was going to take the subscription book.
Well, you just leave me with an empty company.
Here's a few laptops. Have fun.
Yeah, good luck. Have I ever thought about quitting on the back of what Alex is saying there? I don't think so. There's been bad days. There's obviously been bad days. And, we're in the business of people. So, Alex, you understand this. It's like you're not just delivering a software product. You're delivering a person who's got a family, who's got a life, who's got who's got outside influence, who's got, their own kind of things going on. But you're also delivering it to a client who needs a result. That's why they've come to us. So sometimes it has been a bit heavy in the sense of like you're trying to control the uncontrollable. And, some of the stories that we've had around why people have had to leave jobs suddenly and not started on the right day and all that kind of stuff can weigh you down because you're selling this idea of like having reliable staff, but it's staff, you can't deal with that kind of stuff. So that has sometimes weighed heavy and made me think, actually scalable. But then I always look at it like how many different businesses are hiring right now for roles that should be, in my mind, offshore, and like there's just no reason to hire that person onshore. You could spend that cash in other places. So it always comes back to that, and then always realigns to our own vision, our own goals for the business and the impact that we want to create and for ourselves, but also the businesses that we serve. I think we've calculated that we've saved our clients over $10 million in salaries over the last 4 or 5 years. So that's no small feat. And but yeah, there's definitely been moments, like there's always been moments. But I think the skill in entrepreneurship is having those moments and pushing through anyway. You're responsible for other people's families and mouths to feed, and you got your own family and all that kind of stuff. So it's always been a thought, but then eventually we kind of come through it. And, we're coming through it right now. The activity in the business at the moment is pretty electric. The sales are starting to crank again. Yeah, it's a different vibe. Yeah, Alex, what would be your advice to businesses that are bootstrapping right now? I've got a really simple one. Don't make a mistake. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Your next decision could kill your business.
How many times have we been through that thought process?
Yeah, about 100, and it was for meaningless things. But yeah, like what would you say to businesses that are bootstrapping now?
I think you really have to get present to a belief system where, like, if not this, then what? What is the other option? You got to really dive into and dig deep into your belief systems around, why you set out on this journey in the first place. Kind of reflects, my journey is being qualified accountant and like, what I could do instead of that's way easier, way more comfortable. But what's the actual opportunity cost to that? What is the cost to your business, cost to your family? What's the cost to your lifestyle? What's the cost to yourself when you quit on things that you tell yourself you're going to do is probably a big one and has a massive impact right across your life as a whole. So yeah, for me, it would be just getting clear on, if not this, then what? And if that other what isn't something that you truly want, then you just got to attack each day like this cannot not be a success.
True.
Every interaction has got to be a success.
To businesses who are in the bootstrapping, who have decided to go on a bootstrapping journey, I think it's important to remember a couple of things. One, you can always raise capital, right? Like there's so much capital out there. You can always raise it. We've had offers for all the businesses that we own, most days, like we could find it tomorrow. If we needed to raise $100,000, $1 million tomorrow, we could do it. So just by being in the bootstrapping space and actually building a solid service offering or product, you will attract people who want to give you cash because they want a return on investment. So know that, okay? I think that's key number one. The other thing that I've learned is that a business that bootstraps is completely different to a business that doesn't, right? In the sense of the politics, the requirements for, declarations and financial statements, and even just like decision-making processes. It actually slows, in some cases, an entire business to its knees and brings it and slows it down. It adds just a complexity that you don't need in those early stages. So if you don't need to take people's money, I've learned you just don't. Otherwise, you end up going to work for for the shareholder, but then again, in some businesses it's required, right? So any service-based business should just bootstrap or self-fund. I don't think there's a need to. Yeah, I think tech is a different story, because you do need the resource to build it. But I'm grateful that we never took on capital, because we've been able to do things that would have required 6 months of sign off and probably never got through, or it just slows the entire decision-making process down. And the biggest asset of a startup is its agility. So you lose the agility and you lose the ability to make decisions quickly. Well, it can be the death of a business. So have we seen it? So yeah, that's what I would say to people who are kind of bootstrapping right now.
Yeah, it's yours at the end of the day. Nobody can take it away from you in theory. Like, nobody can tell you what to do. Nobody can tell you that you can't pull $20 out for a coffee today. Like,
no expense claims.
Just do what you want. However, the crux of the matter really is, if you're bootstrapping, you have to commit to delivering an unreal customer experience. You have to. You can't roll out a shitty version, beta, Charlie, Delta, whatever version it is of your app that you're going to be launching in 12 months with a few slides to go with it. You really need to knuckle down on the customer experience, deliver it really, really well, get people to almost become brand evangelists for your business. You will see organic growth. It will come. It's happened for us, day one versus day 1,650 or whatever we're at. Like, it's all down to the customer experience.